I still remember the exact moment my manager smiled at me and said, "Don't worry. This promotion is yours." He said it like it was already done, like the future had been decided, like my years of loyalty finally meant something. At that time, I was 42 years old. Not young, not old either, just tired. Tired in a way sleep does not fix. Tired in a way coffee cannot touch. I had given 15 years of my life to that company. 15 years of early mornings, late nights, missed birthdays, canceled vacations, phone calls taken in hospital hallways. And I told myself it was all worth it, because someday they would see me. That day felt like it had finally arrived. When I walked out of my manager's office, I sat in my car for a long time. I did not start the engine. I just stared at the steering wheel. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from hope. Hope is dangerous like that. It sneaks up on you. It convinces you to trust again, even when life has taught you better. I drove home that evening feeling lighter than I had in years. I stopped by the grocery store and bought a bottle of wine we could not really afford. I bought my wife's favorite chocolate, the expensive kind. I wanted to celebrate. I wanted my family to feel it too, because this promotion was not just mine. It was theirs. At least, that's what I believed. My wife, Karen, was standing at the kitchen sink when I walked in. She looked tired. She always looked tired back then. Our marriage had been running on routine for years. No big fights. No big passion either. Just survival. "How was work?" she asked, without turning around. I smiled. A real smile. One she had not seen in a long time. "I think things are finally changing," I said. She turned and looked at me. Really looked at me. "What do you mean?" she asked. I told her about the meeting, the promotion, the raise, the title. As I spoke, her face softened. Her shoulders relaxed. For a moment, we were not two exhausted adults sharing a house. We were a couple again, dreaming together. "That's amazing," she said quietly. "I'm proud of you." Those words hit me harder than the promotion itself, because I had not heard them in years. We had 2 kids at home then. Jake was 16. Emily was 13. Teenagers who lived in their own worlds. Phones in their hands. Earbuds in their ears. I called them into the living room. Told them the news. Jake nodded. "Cool," he said. Emily smiled and hugged me. "I'm happy for you, Dad." That hug stayed with me longer than it should have, because I did not know how rare those moments were about to become. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling. Karen slept beside me. I did not sleep. My mind kept replaying my manager's words. "This promotion is yours." I believed him, because I wanted to believe him, and because trusting him felt easier than facing the truth I had avoided for years. That loyalty does not always matter. That effort is not always rewarded. That sometimes the system is never built for people like you. But I pushed those thoughts away. I told myself this time was different. The next few weeks felt strange, like waiting for a storm you know is coming, but hope will miss you. Coworkers congratulated me quietly. Some smiled. Some avoided eye contact. I noticed things I had ignored before. Meetings I was suddenly not invited to. Emails that stopped coming. I told myself I was overthinking. Karen noticed my silence at dinner. "You okay?" she asked. "Just tired," I said. That was my favorite lie. One afternoon, I overheard something in the break room. 2 younger employees talking in low voices. I was not supposed to hear it, but I did. They stopped when they saw me. That moment sat in my chest like a stone. Still, I said nothing. Because hope makes you quiet. Fear makes you polite. The day of the announcement finally came. The entire department was called into the conference room. People took seats. The air felt heavy. My manager stood at the front, smiling. I sat there, hands folded, heart racing. This was it. This was the moment everything changed. And it did. Just not the way I thought. When he said someone else's name, it felt like the room tilted. Like the floor dropped out from under me. I did not understand the words at first. They did not make sense. I looked around, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was a mistake. But no one did. People clapped. Someone shook the new guy's hand. And I sat there, frozen, invisible. That was the moment I learned something about fear. Real fear. It is quiet. It does not scream. It sinks. And it follows you home. I drove back that night in silence. I did not stop at the grocery store. I did not call Karen. When I walked through the door, she looked at my face and knew. "What happened?" she asked. I sat down slowly. "They gave it to someone else," I said. The room felt smaller after that, and nothing in my life was ever the same again. I did not say anything else that night. Neither did Karen. Silence has a sound when it lives inside a house. It hums. It presses against the walls. It makes every small noise feel loud. The clock in the kitchen ticked like it was counting something down. Time. Patience. Or maybe just my pride. Karen stood there for a moment after I told her. She did not yell. She did not cry. That scared me more than anger ever could. "Oh," she said. Just one word. Then she turned back to the sink and started washing a plate that was already clean. I sat there watching her hands move under the water. I wanted her to say something comforting, something soft, but she didn't. After a while, she said, "So what happens now?" That question landed heavy. "I don't know," I answered honestly. She nodded slowly. Not at me. At the idea of uncertainty. "Well," she said, "we'll figure it out." But her voice did not sound like belief. It sounded like calculation. That night, she turned away from me in bed. No goodnight kiss. No hand reaching for mine. Just space. I lay there staring at the ceiling again, just like before. But this time, the hope was gone. In its place was something colder. Shame. I started replaying every decision I had ever made. Every time I stayed late at work instead of coming home early. Every promise I made to my kids that I broke because work needed me. And for what? To be passed over like I was nothing. The next morning, I woke up early out of habit. Karen was already dressed. She moved around the kitchen quietly. Efficient. Distant. I poured myself coffee and stood there awkwardly, like a guest in my own home. "I'll be late tonight," she said without looking at me. I picked up an extra shift. That hit me harder than it should have. She had never taken extra shifts before. Not like this. "Okay," I said. I wanted to ask why, but I already knew the answer. Fear changes people, and money fear changes them fast. At work, no one mentioned the promotion. It was like it never happened. The guy who got it, Ryan, walked past my desk and gave me a small, uncomfortable smile. He was younger, smarter in a modern way, better at talking in meetings. He had been at the company for 3 years. 3. I had been there for 15. Every time someone congratulated him, it felt like a small cut. Not deep, just enough to sting. All day long. By the time I got home, the house was empty. Jake was out with friends. Emily was at a sleepover. Karen would be late. I stood in the living room alone, listening to the refrigerator hum. That sound again. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. That was the first time a dangerous thought crossed my mind. Maybe I am not enough. Not at work. Not at home. Over the next few weeks, things shifted slowly. Quietly. Karen started keeping track of expenses more closely. She made lists. She sighed a lot. Jake stopped talking to me unless he needed something. Money. A ride. Permission. Emily still hugged me sometimes. But even she felt more distant. Like she was watching me. Like she could sense something was wrong, but didn't know how to fix it. And I did not know how to explain it. How do you tell your kids that you failed without making them feel unsafe? One night, Karen finally said what we had both been thinking. We were sitting at the kitchen table, bills spread out between us. "Maybe it's time you look for something else," she said. I stared at the numbers on the page. "Something else?" I repeated. "A different company," she said carefully. "Somewhere that appreciates you." Her words sounded kind, but I heard what was underneath. "Somewhere better than this. Better than you." "I can't just leave," I said. "I've built my whole career there." She sighed. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "You built it there, and they didn't build it around you." That hurt, because it was true. I started staying later at work after that. Not because I had to, but because I didn't want to come home. Home felt like a place where I was being measured, judged. Every time Karen looked at me, I felt like she was doing math in her head. Jake barely noticed when I came in late. Emily asked once, "Are you okay, Dad?" I told her I was fine. That lie again. The real breaking point came on a Sunday afternoon. Jake was sitting at the table, filling out college forms. Karen was helping him. I walked in and sat down, trying to be part of it. Jake looked up and said, "Mom, do you think we can still afford this school?" Karen hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. She glanced at me before answering. That look cut deeper than any argument. "We'll see," she said. Jake nodded. I stood up and left the room without saying a word. Because in that moment, I realized something painful. My failure was no longer just mine. It had become a family issue. That night, Karen and I argued for the first time in years. Not loudly, not dramatically. Quiet arguments are worse. "I need you to understand," she said. "I'm scared." "I am too," I said. "But I'm not the one who lost the promotion," she replied. That sentence stayed with me. I wanted to scream that I didn't choose this, that I worked harder than anyone. But none of that mattered. Fear doesn't care about effort, only results. After that, the distance between us grew. Karen stopped telling me things, stopped asking for my opinion. She made decisions alone, and I let her, because part of me felt like I no longer had the right to lead, or even speak. At work, things got worse. Ryan started assigning me tasks. Simple ones. Busy work. I smiled and did them, because what choice did I have? Every day felt like a reminder that I had been replaced without leaving. One evening, I came home early by accident. Karen was on the phone in the bedroom. She didn't hear me come in. "I just don't know how long I can do this," she said softly. There was a pause. "No," she said. "I'm not saying I want to leave. I'm just tired." I stood in the hallway, frozen, listening to my wife talk about a life I was no longer sure I belonged in. That night, I did not confront her. I lay in bed beside her, awake, while she slept. I stared at the ceiling again, and for the first time, I wondered something that scared me more than losing my job. What if losing the promotion was just the beginning? What if this was the moment everything started falling apart? Because sometimes, life does not break you all at once. Sometimes it waits. It lets you sit with the damage. And then it asks you one quiet question. Who are you, now that the thing you built your life around no longer sees you? And I had no answer. Something inside me started changing after that night in the hallway. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was something quieter, heavier, like a slow burn that never went out. I still went to work every day, still smiled at the right people, still answered emails on time. But I stopped believing in the place. And when you stop believing in something that once defined you, it changes how you carry yourself. I noticed it in the mirror first. My shoulders slumped more. My eyes looked tired in a way that sleep could not fix. Karen noticed too. She didn't say anything. She just watched. Jake changed before anyone else did. Teenagers sense weakness like sharks smell blood. They don't mean to. It just happens. One evening, he asked me for money to go out with friends. "How much?" I asked. "50, he said. I hesitated. Not because we didn't have it, but because every dollar felt heavier now. Karen looked at me from across the room. "Just give it to him," she said. Something snapped. "No," I said. "We need to talk about money now." Jake rolled his eyes. "Why?" he said. "Because you didn't get the promotion?" The room went quiet. Karen's face changed instantly. "Jake," she said sharply. But the damage was done. I stared at my son. This kid I had worked myself into exhaustion for. "I didn't fail," I said slowly. "They failed me." Jake shrugged. "Same thing," he said. That hurt more than he knew. That was the first time I felt something close to rage. Not loud rage. Cold rage. The kind that makes you withdraw. After that, I stopped trying with Jake. I answered when he spoke. But I didn't reach anymore. And he noticed. Emily noticed too. One night, she knocked on my bedroom door. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded. She sat beside me on the bed, holding her knees. "Are Mom and Jake mad at you?" she asked softly. I swallowed. "No," I said. "They're just stressed." She looked at me for a long moment. "You look sad," she said. That broke me more than anything else had. I hugged her tightly. "I'm okay," I whispered. But I wasn't. At work, the humiliation became routine. Ryan would stop by my desk with instructions. Short ones. Polite ones. He never raised his voice. Never acted superior. That almost made it worse. Once, during a meeting, he interrupted me mid-sentence. "We'll circle back," he said. Everyone nodded. No one looked at me. I sat there, nodding too. Like I agreed with being erased. I started coming home later again. Not to work. Just to avoid. I would sit in my car outside the house, engine off, radio low. I watched the lights through the windows. A family moving without me. I wondered when that started. Karen finally confronted me one evening. "You're not here anymore," she said. "I'm right here," I replied. "No," she said. "You're physically here, but you're gone." I didn't know how to argue with that. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want my partner back," she said. I laughed bitterly. "My partner didn't get the promotion," I said. "Remember?" Her eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair," she said. "I didn't take it away from you." "No," I said. "But you stopped believing in me." She didn't answer. Because silence is the loudest truth. The pressure built slowly. Bills. College plans. Work meetings. Everything felt like a test I was failing. One afternoon, my manager called me into his office. Not for praise. For feedback. "We've noticed a drop in engagement," he said. I stared at him. You passed me over, I said. And now you're surprised I'm disengaged? He shifted uncomfortably. Let's stay professional, he said. That was the moment I realized something. Loyalty is only valued when it benefits the powerful. I started thinking about leaving. Not just the job. Everything. Not running away. Just stepping back. I imagined a small apartment. Quiet mornings. No expectations. That scared me. Because the thought felt peaceful. The real confrontation came on a Friday night. Jake and I argued again. Over something small. Curfew. He raised his voice. You don't get to control everything just because your life sucks, he said. Karen stepped between us. That's enough, she said to me. That hurt. Not to him. To me. I walked out of the house that night. Drove aimlessly. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if my family would be better off without me. Not dead. Just gone. I parked by a quiet street and sat there until midnight. Thinking. Breathing. Breaking. When I finally came home, the house was dark. Karen had left a note. We'll talk tomorrow. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. Because part of me knew. Tomorrow would change everything. That night, lying alone, I accepted something painful. I had built my identity on work. On being useful. On being needed. And when that was taken away, I didn't know who I was anymore. The next morning came too fast. I woke up before the alarm, my chest already tight. Karen was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed. Her back was to me. That distance between us felt deliberate now. Measured. We need to talk, she said. Those 4 words can carry a lot of weight when a marriage is already cracked. I sat up slowly. My feet touched the floor. Cold. She turned toward me. Her face looked tired. Older somehow. I can't keep doing this, she said quietly. I waited. I had learned that interrupting only made things worse. I feel like I'm living with a stranger, she continued. You don't talk. You don't fight. You just disappear. I nodded. I don't know how to be here anymore, I said. That was the truth. Ugly. Bare. She pressed her lips together, like she was holding something back. Then maybe you shouldn't be, she said. The words landed softly, but they shattered something inside me. We didn't argue. We didn't cry. We talked logistics. Space. Time. What was best for the kids? When conversations reach that point, love has already been wounded for a while. I'm not asking for a divorce, she said quickly. I just need distance. Distance. Such a polite word for separation. I'll stay with my sister for a bit, she added. Take the kids. Let you breathe. I wanted to protest. I wanted to say I could change. But something stopped me. Because part of me felt relief. And that scared me. They left that afternoon. Karen packed calmly. Emily hugged me tightly. Call me every night, she said. I will, I promised. Jake didn't hug me. He barely looked at me. When the door closed, the house felt hollow. Not quiet. Hollow. Like it had been scooped out. That first night alone was unbearable. I sat on the couch with the TV on, volume low. Not watching. Just filling space. I walked into the kids' rooms. Stood there. Emily's bed still unmade. Jake's posters on the wall. I realized how much of my identity had been wrapped up in being needed. And now, no one needed me. Work did not slow down to accommodate my pain. If anything, it got worse. Ryan asked me to train a new hire. Someone younger. Someone eager. I smiled and agreed. Because saying no felt dangerous now. One afternoon, my manager pulled me aside again. We need to talk about your future here, he said. I almost laughed. My future? I asked. Yes, he said. We're restructuring. That word. Restructuring. It sounds clean. Organized. But it usually means loss. We'll keep you on, he said. But your role will change. Change. Another polite word. I nodded. I had become very good at nodding. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my laptop at home. Not for work. To look at job listings. I stared at the screen for a long time. My resume looked outdated. Heavy with loyalty that no longer mattered. I felt small. The days blurred together after that. I ate alone. Slept alone. Karen called once a day. Short conversations. Emily called every night. Longer. Jake didn't call. That hurt more than I expected. One Friday evening, I poured myself a drink. Then another. Then another. I don't drink much. Never have. But that night, I wanted the noise in my head to stop. It didn't. It got louder. I started thinking about all the ways I had failed. As a husband. As a father. As a provider. The drink did not numb it. It sharpened it. I woke up the next morning with a headache and shame. I poured the rest of the bottle down the sink. I promised myself I would not use alcohol as an escape, because I had seen where that road led. A week later, Karen came by to pick up some things. We stood in the living room, awkward. She looked around like a visitor. "This place feels different," she said. "It is," I replied. She hesitated. "I miss you," she said. I looked at her. "I miss us," I said. She nodded. "But missing isn't enough," she whispered. Before she left, she paused at the door. "You need to decide what you want," she said. "Because staying like this isn't living." She left, and that sentence stayed. That night, I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, thinking, what did I want? To keep a job that didn't respect me? To cling to a marriage out of fear? To model this quiet misery for my kids? Or to risk change? Risk was terrifying, but stagnation was killing me slowly. On Monday morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I asked for a meeting with my manager. When I sat down across from him, my hands were steady. "I want to step down," I said. He blinked. "Step down?" he repeated. "Yes," I said. "Or step out." He leaned back. "Are you sure?" he asked. "This is a stable position." I almost laughed again. "I haven't felt stable in a long time," I said. He nodded slowly. "We'll process your resignation," he said. Just like that. 15 years. Reduced to paperwork. I walked out of the building for the last time without telling anyone. No goodbye emails. No speeches. Just quiet. The air outside felt different. Lighter. And heavier. Because freedom and fear often feel the same at first. That evening, I called Karen. "I quit," I said. There was silence. "You did what?" she asked. "I left the job," I repeated. "I couldn't stay." She exhaled slowly. "That's big," she said. "I know," I replied. We talked for a long time that night. Not about logistics. About fear. About regret. For the first time in months, it felt honest. When I hung up, I sat alone again. Unemployed. Separated. And strangely, hopeful. Because for the first time, the future was unknown. And maybe that meant it could be rebuilt. That night, I wrote something in a notebook. I am more than my job. I didn't believe it yet, but I wanted to. The first thing you notice after quitting a job is the silence. No alarm clock. No emails waiting. No meetings stacked on top of each other. Just time. And when you are already questioning your worth, too much time is dangerous. I woke up that first Monday without a schedule. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. For years, my mornings had meaning. Now they felt empty. I made coffee and drank it slowly at the kitchen table. The same table where bills once covered every inch. The same chair where Karen used to sit across from me. I checked my phone. No messages. I told myself it was still early. People were busy. But deep down, I felt something heavier. I was no longer needed anywhere. By the end of the first week, reality began knocking. Hard. The bank alert came first. Mortgage payment due. Then the credit card statement. Then the college savings account reminder. Numbers do not care about emotional healing. They do not pause out of sympathy. I opened my notebook and started writing things down. Expenses. Savings. Time. I had more time than money. And that scared me. I updated my resume. Every line felt like a lie. Team player. Dedicated. Reliable. I had been all of those things. And it still wasn't enough. I applied to jobs I was overqualified for. Jobs I didn't want. Jobs that paid less. Each application felt like swallowing pride. Karen called that evening. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm okay," I said. That was half true. "Have you told the kids?" she asked. "No," I said. "We should," she replied. "They deserve to know." I agreed, even though I was terrified. That weekend, Karen brought the kids over. Jake walked in like he was entering a stranger's house. Emily ran to hug me. I held her longer than usual. We sat in the living room together. The four of us. Karen looked at me and nodded. I cleared my throat. "I left my job," I said. Jake's eyes widened. "You quit?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Why would you do that?" he snapped. "We need that money." Karen tried to calm him. "Jake." "No," he said. "He always does this. He messes things up and everyone else pays." That hurt, but I didn't interrupt. "I was miserable," I said quietly, "and I didn't want to live like that anymore." Jake laughed bitterly. "Must be nice to have choices," he said. Emily looked confused. "Does that mean we're poor now?" she asked softly. That broke my heart. "No," I said quickly. "We're okay. We'll be okay." I wasn't sure. After they left, Karen stayed behind. "That was rough," she said. "I know," I replied. Jake's words echoed in my head. Everyone else pays. That night, I didn't sleep. The job rejections started coming in. Thank you for your interest. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Each email chipped away at me. I started questioning everything again. Had I made a mistake? Had I chosen pride over responsibility? One afternoon, I ran into an old coworker at the grocery store. He smiled awkwardly. Heard you left, he said. Yeah, I replied. That was bold, he said. Bold. Another polite word. We talked for a few minutes. Then he walked away. I stood there staring at cereal boxes, feeling invisible. Money got tighter. I canceled subscriptions. Stopped eating out. Cut corners. I hated that I noticed prices now. That I did math in my head at checkout. I hated that I felt like less of a man because of it. Emily called me one night. Dad, she said. Mom seems stressed. I know, I replied. Is it my fault? She asked. No, I said firmly. Never. But the truth was, we were all carrying this together. Karen and I started arguing again. About money. About timelines. How long is this going to take? She asked one night. I don't know, I admitted. That's the problem, she said. We're living in the unknown. So am I replied. She sighed. I need stability, she said. For the kids. That word again. Stability. I used to think I provided it. One night, I sat alone and cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quiet tears. For the life I thought I had built. For the man I thought I was. For the version of myself my kids once believed in without question. But something else happened too. Something unexpected. I started noticing small things again. Sunlight through the window. Birds in the morning. The taste of real coffee instead of rushed sips. I started walking every day. Thinking. Asking myself hard questions. Who am I without a title? Without approval? And for the first time, I didn't rush to answer. A month passed. Then another. The pressure didn't disappear. But something inside me shifted. I stopped begging for validation. Stopped trying to prove I mattered. I focused on becoming steady again. Slowly. One afternoon, Emily hugged me and said, You smile more now. I laughed softly. Do I? I asked. She nodded. That meant more to me than any paycheck. Jake still kept his distance. But he watched. I could feel it. Karen and I talked more honestly. About fear. About expectations. I didn't marry your job, she said one night. I married you. I wanted to believe her. The financial stress was still there. The uncertainty too. But I had learned something important. Losing money hurts. Losing respect hurts more. But losing yourself? That's the real cost. I didn't know how the story would end yet. I still don't. But for the first time, I felt like I was moving forward instead of standing still. And sometimes, that's enough to keep going. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Tuesdays had become my quiet days. No expectations. No interview scheduled. Just space. My phone buzzed while I was washing dishes. An unfamiliar number. For a moment, I almost didn't answer. Rejection had trained me to avoid hope. But something told me to pick it up. Hello, I said. Is this Mark? The voice asked. Yes, I replied. This is Daniel from Northbridge Consulting. We worked together years ago. I froze. Northbridge, a company I had collaborated with briefly near the start of my career, back when I still believed effort always paid off. I remember, I said carefully. I heard you left your company, he continued. I wanted to check in. Check in. Such a small phrase. But it felt big. We talked for 20 minutes. About old projects. About changes in the industry. About life. He didn't ask why I left. He didn't judge. At the end of the call, he said something unexpected. We're starting something new, he said. Small team. Flexible structure. I listened quietly. I thought of you, he added. That sentence landed softly. But it stayed. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Someone had thought of me. Not because of my title. Not because of my loyalty. Because of my work. Because of who I was before disappointment reshaped me. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The meeting was set for the following week. I didn't tell Karen right away. I didn't want to raise expectations. But Emily noticed something. You're humming, she said on the phone one night. I am, I asked. She laughed. You do that when you're hopeful, she said. I didn't realize I still remembered how to feel that way. The meeting itself was simple. No conference room. No suits. Just coffee and conversation. Daniel talked about balance. About not burning people out. About mistakes he'd made before. That honesty mattered to me. I'm not looking for a title, I said. I'm looking for respect. He nodded. That's exactly why I called you, he said. We didn't make any promises. But when I walked out, my chest felt lighter. I told Karen that evening. She listened carefully. That sounds different, she said. It is, I replied. She smiled softly. I'm glad someone sees you, she said. Those words meant more than she knew. Jake didn't react the same way. When he heard about the meeting, he shrugged. Doesn't mean anything, he said. I wanted to argue, but I didn't. Because I realized something. Jake wasn't angry at me. He was scared. A few days later, he showed up at my place unexpectedly. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. Mom said you might be home, he said. I am, I replied. We sat at the kitchen table. Just the two of us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said, I'm mad at you. I know, I replied. You always told me to be responsible, he continued. To stick things out. I nodded. And then you quit, he said. There it was. I took a deep breath. I didn't quit because it was hard, I said. I quit because it was breaking me. He looked down. I didn't know, he muttered. That's on me, I said. I didn't let you see it. He was quiet for a long time. I was scared we'd lose everything, he said finally. I was too, I replied. That conversation changed something. Not everything, but something. He didn't hug me, but he didn't walk away angry either. Sometimes, progress looks like that. The offer from Northbridge came 2 weeks later. Part-time at first. Contract-based. Less money, but more control. I read the email 3 times. Then once more. It wasn't a rescue. It was a door. I accepted. The first day felt strange. New systems. New faces. But I felt useful again. Not consumed. Respected. I came home tired in a good way. The kind that comes from effort, not dread. Karen noticed the difference quickly. You seem steadier, she said. I feel steadier, I replied. We started talking about counseling. About rebuilding slowly. No promises. Just honesty. Money was still tight. But it didn't feel hopeless anymore. Because hope had a shape now. Not big. Not loud. But real. One night, Emily said something that stayed with me. You look like yourself again, she said. I smiled. I'm trying, I replied. That night, lying alone, I thought about everything I'd lost. And everything I was slowly getting back. Not the job. Not the status. But the man I used to recognize in the mirror. I didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time in a long time, I trusted myself again. And that changed everything. I used to believe that the most painful truths arrive loudly. I thought they came with shouting. With slammed doors. With accusations thrown across a room like knives. I was wrong. The most devastating truth I ever learned came quietly. In a voice that wasn't meant for me. In words spoken with carelessness. Spoken only because the speaker believed I was not listening. That day began like any other. No warning. No sign from the universe. No strange feeling in my chest. Just an ordinary morning that slowly turned into the day my entire past cracked open. The calm before knowing. I woke up early that morning, as I always did. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The walls that once echoed with voices, arguments, laughter, footsteps, now felt hollow. Empty rooms. Empty air. My wife was already awake. I could hear her in the kitchen, moving softly, as if trying not to wake anyone. That alone felt strange. She used to make noise without caring who heard. She used to hum. She used to speak to herself. Now, there was only silence and careful movements. I sat on the edge of the bed longer than usual, staring at the floor. Somewhere deep inside me, a thought whispered, something has already changed. But I ignored it. I always ignored that voice. A conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. I went to the hallway to get my jacket. That's when I heard my name. Not spoken loudly. Not angrily. Spoken casually. As if I were not a person, but a subject. My wife was on the phone. I stopped walking. I wasn't trying to listen. I wasn't spying. But when someone speaks your name, your body freezes before your mind can react. She doesn't know yet, she said softly. My breath stopped. Doesn't know what? I leaned slightly against the wall, my jacket still in my hand. Not everything, she continued. And he must never find out. That was me. And suddenly, the air felt heavier. The words that changed everything. I should have walked away. I should have made noise. Coughed. Let her know I was there. But something inside me whispered. Listen, she still thinks he sacrificed everything for us, my wife said. That story worked perfectly. Story? My chest tightened. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. The truth would destroy him, she added, almost kindly. He wouldn't survive it emotionally. Truth. Destroy. Survive. Every word felt like a slow hammer striking my ribs. What truth? The voice on the other end asked. And then, my wife answered. She answered so easily. The past rewritten in one sentence. He never chose to give up his dreams, she said. We made sure he had no choice. My mind went blank. I felt my legs weaken. The memories rushed in all at once. The job I didn't get. The opportunity that disappeared. The moment I was told, it's better for the family if you stay. I had believed that was my decision. I had believed I was strong. I had believed I chose sacrifice. But now, we pushed him into that corner, she continued. We knew he would choose us over himself. He always does. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure she could hear it. The voice on the phone laughed softly. And he still believes it was his choice? The voice asked. Yes, my wife replied. He still believes we respected him. That sentence shattered something inside me forever. The man I thought I was. For years, I wore my sacrifice like armor. I told myself I was noble. I told myself I was strong. I told myself that real men endure silently. I looked at my tired face in the mirror every morning and said, this is what love looks like. But in one careless conversation, I realized something unbearable. My sacrifice was not admired. It was expected. Worse, it was planned. Hearing the full truth. She was the one who suggested it first, my wife said. His mother, she said. He will never leave us if we make him responsible for everything. My own mother. The woman who raised me. The woman who taught me about right and wrong. She said he was too obedient, my wife continued. Too easy to control. I felt sick. Memories replayed in a new light. The guilt-laced advice. The emotional pressure. The constant reminders of duty. None of it was accidental. It was strategy. The moment I almost broke. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor silently, my back against the wall. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even breathe properly. All I could think was, my entire life was designed without my consent. I remembered the nights I lay awake wondering why I felt so empty. Now I knew. Because I had never truly lived as myself. The cruelest part. And if he ever starts asking questions? The voice asked. My wife paused. Then she said the sentence that killed the last illusion I had left. We'll remind him how much we sacrificed for him. I covered my mouth to stop myself from making a sound. Sacrifice. That word again. They would use my pain. To keep me silent. They would use my love. As a weapon against me. Walking away without being seen. I stood up slowly. My legs shook, but I forced myself to walk. I didn't confront her. I didn't interrupt the call. I walked out of the house like a ghost. The door closed quietly behind me. Outside, the world looked exactly the same. Cars passed. Birds flew. People lived. Only I had changed. The death of an old self. That day, something inside me died. Not my body. Not my hope. But the version of me that believed. Love is proven through suffering. Silence is strength. Endurance is virtue. I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. I had been loyal to people who never respected my humanity. A new awareness. For the first time in my life, I asked myself a question I had always avoided. What do I want? Not what they need. Not what they expect. What do I want? The question felt unfamiliar. Almost dangerous. But it also felt honest. The truth's aftermath. I didn't confront anyone that day. I didn't expose the truth. I carried it quietly, like a burning coal in my chest. Because I knew something now. Truth does not demand immediate action. It demands understanding first. And I needed time to understand who I was. Without the roles they assigned me. What this truth changed forever. I still live in that house. I still smile when required. But something fundamental has shifted. I listen now. I observe. And most importantly, I no longer confuse guilt with love. Closing of part 7. They thought I would never hear that conversation. They were right about one thing. I was never meant to hear the truth. But now that I have, there is no going back. Because once a man realizes his life was controlled by design, he faces a choice more terrifying than obedience. Freedom. After the truth found me, life didn't explode the way people imagine it does in movies. There was no screaming match. No dramatic confrontation. No tears on the kitchen floor. Instead, something much quieter happened. I stopped explaining myself. And that was the beginning of the end. Living with the weight of knowing. When you discover a truth that rewrites your entire life, you don't react right away. First, you carry it. You wake up with it. You sit with it at breakfast. You hear it echo in your head while others speak like nothing has changed. That's what I did. I carried the truth like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. Every smile I gave felt borrowed. Every word I spoke felt filtered. I was still present, but I was no longer participating. They didn't notice at first. That's the strange thing. They didn't notice the change right away, because I had always been quiet, always agreeable, always the one who absorbed discomfort so others didn't have to. So when I became quieter, it felt normal to them. But inside me, something had snapped. Not loudly, cleanly, like a rope finally giving up after being pulled too hard for too long. The first boundary. It started with something small. One evening, my wife asked me to cancel plans I had made weeks earlier. Nothing urgent, nothing serious. Just another, "We need you here tonight." Normally, I would have agreed without thinking. That night, I paused. "I can't," I said softly. "I already made plans." She looked at me like I had spoken a foreign language. "What plans?" she asked. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I didn't apologize. "I'll be back later," I said. And I walked out. My hands were shaking the entire drive. But I didn't turn around. The silence that followed. When I came home that night, the house felt colder. Not angry, just alert, as if something unfamiliar had entered the space. No one yelled at me, but no one asked how my night was either. That silence was intentional. It was meant to punish me. And for the first time, it didn't work. The guilt weapon. A few days later, it came. The guilt. Not directly. Never directly. "You seem distant lately," my wife said one morning. "Is everything okay with us?" That word, us, it had always meant them. "I'm fine," I replied. She studied my face carefully. "You know we depend on you," she added. "We've always depended on you." There it was. The old trigger. The sentence that used to pull me back into place. But now, I heard it differently. Dependence wasn't love. It was control. Remembering who I used to be. That night, I sat alone in my car for a long time. I thought about the man I used to be. The one who believed being needed was the same as being valued. The one who confused sacrifice with meaning. The one who thought love had to hurt to be real. I felt sad for him. Not angry. Just deeply, quietly sad. Because no one had ever taught him better. The first honest thought. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to think something that once felt forbidden. What if I leave? The thought scared me. Not because I didn't want freedom, but because I had no idea who I was without obligation. The emotional distance grows. Days turned into weeks. I spoke less. Observed more. I noticed how conversations stopped when I entered rooms. How decisions were made without including me. Yet I was expected to support them afterward. How my presence was only required when something needed fixing. They didn't miss me. They missed my usefulness. The breaking moment. The breaking moment didn't come during a fight. It came during a family dinner. Everyone was talking, laughing. I was sitting there, listening, when someone said, "He's lucky to have us." Without family, people fall apart. I smiled. But inside, something hardened. Because I realized I had been falling apart with them. Choosing not to argue. That night, my wife asked me directly, "Are you mad at us?" I thought carefully before answering. "No," I said. "I'm just tired." She nodded, relieved. Because tired men are manageable. Awake men are not. The quiet decision. I didn't announce anything. I didn't threaten to leave. I simply decided something for myself. I would no longer live a life that required me to disappear. I would no longer trade my peace for approval. I would no longer bleed quietly to keep others comfortable. The fear of change. I won't lie. I was terrified. Change meant uncertainty. Uncertainty meant risk. But staying meant something worse. A slow death of self. I used to think confrontation had to be dramatic. Raised voices. Slamming doors. Tears that stain carpets. I imagined myself standing in the middle of the living room, pointing fingers, shouting everything I had ever held back. But life doesn't work like that. Not the real kind of life. Not when the truth is heavier than anger. This confrontation came quietly, slowly, over a few days. A conversation that began with a look, not words. A realization that shifted the entire balance of our home. The first step. It started the morning I refused to make breakfast. Not because I didn't care about my family. Not because I was petty. Because I wanted to feel my own choice again. Emily wandered into the kitchen. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked. Her voice had that soft, tentative tone that breaks your heart. "I'm okay," I said. And for the first time, it was true. I wasn't okay yet, but I was no longer pretending to be someone I wasn't. Jake came down a few minutes later. He saw my expression, quiet, steady. He rolled his eyes, muttered under his breath, and walked past me without saying anything. And that's when I realized, confrontation doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it's just a quiet refusal to play the game. The conversation begins. Karen approached me in the living room later that afternoon. There was something different in her eyes, curiosity mixed with caution. "You seem different," she said carefully. "I am," I replied. And I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I simply stated it. Her brow furrowed. "Different how?" I looked at her. Not angrily. Not in accusation. I looked at her with the calm clarity that comes when a man finally sees what he's been blind to for too long. "I'm done living as the man you and everyone else decided I should be," I said. "The man who silently sacrifices. The man who swallows anger. The man who disappears when it's inconvenient." She didn't respond immediately. That was good. Silence is a mirror. You see yourself in it. The hardest words. I told her everything. Not in a screaming tirade. Not with dramatics. Just truth. I told her about the phone call I overheard. The planning. The expectations. The careful orchestration of my life to suit everyone else. I waited for an explosion. For tears. For begging. But there was nothing. Instead, there was silence. A heavy, thoughtful silence. And then she said something I will never forget. "I didn't think you'd ever realize it. Realization is louder than shouting. It's heavier than anger." Jake watches. Jake walked in during the conversation. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. I could feel his skepticism, his anger, his fear. "You're finally saying something," he muttered. "But does it even matter?" I looked at him, calm but firm. "It matters because I matter," I said. "Not because of what you think. Not because of anyone else. I matter because I am me." For the first time, he didn't roll his eyes. He didn't argue. He just watched. And I realized he was listening in a way he never had before. "Emily speaks." Emily came over and took my hand. "Dad, does this mean you're happy?" she asked quietly. I smiled softly. "I'm starting to be," I said. "And that's enough for now." Her small nod was everything. It was recognition. It was understanding. It was the quiet acknowledgement of change that doesn't need a fanfare. Karen's response. After a long pause, Karen finally spoke. "I didn't realize how much I was holding you back," she said. "Or how much I pushed you into corners you didn't want to be in." "I know," I said. "And it's not just on you. It's all of us. We were all part of it. Expectations, roles, habits. But I'm done being invisible in my own life." She nodded slowly. "I see that now," she said softly. "And I want to try to do better. For you. For the kids. For us." The shift. It wasn't immediate. Change never is. But the house felt different after that day. The air was lighter. The corners weren't as sharp. Even Jake's sighs became softer. I could see it in small ways. Emily laughing louder at breakfast. Karen pausing to ask how my day went. Jake leaving his phone down and looking at me without irritation. The confrontation had not been dramatic. It had not been violent. It had not been loud. But it had been real. And sometimes, reality is the most shocking force of all. Learning to speak without fear. The hardest lesson I learned that day was this. You do not need to shout to be heard. You do not need to fight to be respected. You do not need to demand love to receive it. You just need to be honest. And sometimes, honesty is louder than any argument. Jake finally opens up. A week later, Jake came to me alone. His voice was quieter than I expected. "Dad, I didn't understand before," he said. "Why you did what you did. Why you stayed quiet. Why you let us think it was our choice too." I nodded. "You're allowed to not understand," I said. "Because it took me years to understand myself." He sat there, hands on his knees. "I'm sorry," he said, "for thinking you always had it easy. For blaming you." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to apologize," I said. "You just need to learn." A quiet victory. That night, lying awake alone in my room, I realized something. The confrontation I had feared my entire life did not need shouting, blame, or tears. It only required honesty, presence, and the courage to finally put myself first. For the first time in years, I felt steady. And in that steadiness, I found power. A power that no job, no expectation, no plan could ever take from me again. After the quiet confrontation, life didn't magically fix itself. Nothing in my house or in my heart became perfect overnight. But for the first time in years, I felt a faint sense of direction, a sense that maybe, slowly, things could be repaired. Not with grand gestures, not with dramatic speeches, but with small, deliberate actions that spoke louder than words. The first step. It started with breakfast. Not a family meeting, not an announcement. Just me, Emily, and Jake at the table. I made pancakes. Emily laughed when I flipped one too high. Jake didn't say much, just ate quietly, but I could see the tension in his shoulders easing. I realized then that trust doesn't come from promises. It comes from showing up. Every day, even when it's small, even when it's imperfect. Small boundaries, big impact. Karen and I began talking differently. No long lectures. No guilt trips. She started asking instead of assuming. I started saying no without fear. I need some time at the office today, I said one morning. Karen paused, waiting for me to cave. But I didn't. She nodded. I understand, she said. For years, I had never experienced that word in this house. Understand. It sounded simple. But to me, it was revolutionary. Jake and I begin again. Jake was still cautious. Every step forward with him felt like walking on thin ice. One evening, he sat on the couch beside me, scrolling through his phone. Dad, he said quietly, can we talk? I nodded. I didn't ask why. I just waited. He hesitated. Then, I know I've been hard on you since everything. I waited. I didn't know how to. I don't know. Me neither, I said softly. And that's okay. He leaned back, still tense, but no longer defensive. A bridge had begun to form. Emily's role. Emily, as always, was the easiest to reach. Her love was uncomplicated, pure. She would bring me drawings, show me little victories at school, or just talk about her day. I realized she had been holding a space for me all along. A space I had almost abandoned by letting the weight of lies and expectations consume me. One night, she hugged me tight. Dad, you seem happy, she whispered. I hugged her back. Trying, I said. Sometimes, that's all happiness needs, trying. Redefining our household. The house itself felt different now. Rooms were no longer arenas of silent tension. They became spaces where small gestures mattered. Asking about someone's day before rushing off. Leaving a note on the fridge instead of grumbling about chores. Sitting together quietly without filling the silence with distractions. These were not heroic acts. They were acts of presence. And presence, I learned, is the foundation of trust. Facing work differently. My new job at Northbridge gave me space to practice the same lessons. I didn't overcommit. I didn't absorb everyone else's burdens. I learned to say no without guilt. And I learned that respect follows action, not compliance. When I delivered work on my terms, consistently, my colleagues noticed. Even my manager remarked once, "You've got a calm confidence now, Mark." People notice. It felt strange to hear praise without expectation. To be appreciated simply for being competent and present. Karen and I relearn each other. Karen and I began trying therapy. Not just couples therapy, but individual reflection. We learned how easy it is to project control under the guise of love. How quickly expectations can suffocate. And how fragile trust becomes when honesty is missing. We didn't resolve everything. Arguments still flared. Old habits died slowly. But we started noticing progress instead of only failures. The first real family victory. It was a Sunday afternoon. We decided to take a walk, just the four of us. No phones, no distractions. We laughed. Emily ran ahead, pretending to be a superhero. Jake grumbled about the cold, but he stayed close. Karen held my hand briefly, then smiled without words. At that moment, I realized the house wasn't perfect. The relationships weren't perfect. I wasn't perfect, but perfection wasn't the point. Connection was. Being present, being honest, showing up every single day, learning patience. Rebuilding trust isn't like fixing a broken appliance. It's not immediate. It takes patience. It takes repetition. It takes humility. I failed some days. I snapped at Karen over small things. I grew frustrated with Jake's sarcasm. And Emily would sometimes cry because I had lost my temper over something trivial. But I returned. Every time. I returned with apologies. With presence. With effort. And slowly, trust grew. Not perfectly, but steadily. A quiet realization. One night, I sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet. I thought about the man I had been. The man who had believed sacrifice was the highest form of love. The man who had let everyone orchestrate his life. And I realized something profound. I had been given the hardest lesson of my life. And it had taught me how to live fully for the first time. The promise to myself. I promised myself this. I will not let others define my worth. I will not let fear dictate my actions. I will continue to show up for the people I love, but not at the cost of my own life. And most importantly, I will be honest. Always. Because honesty rebuilds what lies alone can never repair. By the time part 11 begins, life was finally starting to feel manageable. The tension in the house had eased slightly. Jake was less defensive. Emily laughed more freely. Karen and I spoke more honestly, even when it was uncomfortable. But life doesn't pause to let us breathe. Change doesn't come without tests. And this was going to be ours. The pressure returns. It began at work. Northbridge had grown faster than expected. New clients, new deadlines, new responsibilities. I had negotiated part-time flexibility to regain my life, but suddenly, emails flooded my inbox. Expectations multiplied. People depended on me again, this time in ways that mattered beyond simple tasks. I realized quickly that I had been preparing for this my entire life. All the years of silent endurance, all the moments I'd sacrificed myself, they had taught me resilience. But resilience alone isn't enough. Home life strains. At the same time, home pressures began creeping in. Jake had a major problem at school. A failing grade in a subject he had always excelled at. Karen was frustrated, exhausted from balancing work and the kids. And Emily, sweet as she was, needed more attention than I sometimes had to give. I felt myself pulled in every direction at once. It was familiar. The old me would have crumbled under this weight. The old me would have agreed to everything, swallowed every expectation, and lost himself completely. But the man I had become? He paused. He considered. He prioritized. The moment of confrontation. It came unexpectedly. Jake stormed into the living room one evening. "Why do you get to decide everything now?" he yelled. "Why can't you just leave us alone?" I froze. Not because I was scared, but because I understood. This was his test. Not me. Him. The lesson he had to learn. That freedom and love coexist. I didn't shout. I didn't punish. I simply looked at him. "I'm not deciding everything, Jake," I said calmly. "I'm choosing what I can handle, and I'm letting you handle the rest. I'm here to guide, not control. I'm here to support, not manage." He was quiet. For the first time, he saw me, not as someone to blame, but as someone trying to be real. Karen steps in. Karen came into the room then. She had witnessed this growing tension for weeks. "I see how hard you're trying," she said softly. "Let him figure some things out too. We've been protecting him too much." Her words surprised me. And for the first time in years, we were aligned. Not in control, not in expectation. Aligned in honesty and trust. Facing work challenges. At work, the pressure tested me differently. A major client threatened to leave. The team relied on me to negotiate, to strategize, to deliver results quickly. Old habits wanted to take over. I wanted to take full responsibility, to solve everything, to carry the weight alone. But I stopped myself. I asked for input. I delegated tasks. I trusted others. It was terrifying, but it worked. The client stayed. The team thrived. And I realized something crucial. I could be strong without being alone. The night of reckoning. One night, after everything had settled, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet. I reflected on the journey. Years of silence, betrayal, sacrifice, and finally, honesty. And then Karen joined me. "We're different now," she said softly. "We've all changed." I nodded. "Yes," I said. "But it's not over. Challenges will come. Life will test us again." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "And we'll face them together," she whispered. Jake's growth. Jake approached me later that week. He was hesitant. "Dad, thanks for letting me handle things myself," he said quietly. I get it now. I see how hard it is to balance everything." I smiled softly. "You're learning, Jake. That's what matters." For the first time, he didn't see me as an obstacle or a figure of authority. He saw me as a man, flawed, human, trying, and present. Emily's innocent wisdom. Emily, in her own way, reminded me why all this mattered. One evening, she hugged me tight and whispered, "Dad, you're not just my dad. You're you." I hugged her back, tears welling up in my eyes. She didn't need me to be a hero. She didn't need perfection. She just needed me. And I finally understood. Being present, honest, and steady is more powerful than any title, any promotion, any accolade. A test passed, but not finished. This chapter of life wasn't about victory. It was about endurance. It was about showing up when it's hard, about saying no when needed, about trusting others to carry their weight, and about learning that respect and love must be earned daily, through action, presence, and honesty. I had passed a test, but life would test me again, and I knew, finally, that I could face it with strength I had discovered within myself. Quiet reflections. I sat by the window that night, looking out at the neighborhood lights. I thought about the man I had been, the life I had sacrificed, the truths I had learned. I realized that the test had not broken me. It had shaped me, taught me patience, taught me boundaries, taught me that love, honesty, and presence are far stronger than obedience or silence. And for the first time, I felt ready. Ready for the future. Ready for my family. Ready for myself. Life has a way of teaching lessons that no one ever asks for. It doesn't hand them to you on a silver platter. It doesn't warn you in advance. It tests you quietly, relentlessly, until you either break or grow. By the time we reached this stage, my life had changed entirely. I was not the same man who had walked quietly into that office years ago, hoping loyalty would be enough. I was not the same father who had swallowed his anger and hidden his pain. I was not the same husband who believed sacrifice alone was proof of love. I was someone new, someone who had learned, painfully and slowly, what it truly meant to live, to love, and to be honest with oneself. Morning reflections. It started that morning, as it often did, quietly. I woke up before anyone else. The house was still. The air smelled faintly of coffee brewing downstairs. I made my way to the kitchen, where Karen was already up, preparing breakfast. I noticed the subtle smile she gave me as I poured my own cup of coffee. Not a smile of guilt, apology, or expectation. Just a smile of acknowledgement. That simple gesture told me more than any argument, any confession, or any lesson I had learned over the years. We were present. We were rebuilding. Emily's light. Emily bounded into the kitchen with her usual energy, carrying her backpack for school. "Dad," she shouted, "look at my drawing." I took it from her carefully. It was colorful, chaotic, full of imagination, the kind of work a child pours her heart into without fear of judgment. "I love it," I said sincerely. She beamed. It wasn't just about the drawing. It was about being seen, being heard, being valued. In that moment, I realized that the real gift of life is not success, money, or praise. It is the ability to show up fully, to care, to notice, to witness each other. Jake stepped forward. Jake appeared at the doorway, hesitating as he often did when approaching serious conversations. "Dad," he said quietly, I wanted to say I'm proud of you." My heart stopped. I wasn't expecting this. "For what?" I asked softly. "For everything," he said. "For surviving. For speaking up. For not giving up on us, even when we made it hard." His words hit me harder than any insult, rejection, or failure I had endured. Because they were honest. Because they came without expectation. Because they came from a place of understanding. Karen's acknowledgement. Later, Karen joined me in the living room. We sat quietly on the couch. No phones, no distractions. "I've seen how much you've grown," she said softly. "I've seen the patience, the strength, the honesty, and I've seen how much I took for granted." I nodded, listening carefully, not defending myself, not justifying past choices, just listening. "And I want to do better," she added. "For you, for the kids, for us." Her words weren't perfect. They weren't rehearsed. They were real, and that was enough. The lessons learned. Over time, I realized there are some truths that only life itself can teach. Sacrifice is meaningless without honesty. I had spent years sacrificing for others, thinking it was proof of love or loyalty. But it was hollow until I learned to be honest about my needs and my limits. Freedom is more powerful than obedience. Following rules, expectations, or carefully laid plans without question might feel safe, but it isn't living. True life requires the courage to define your own boundaries. Love is shown through presence, not control. The people who matter will notice your efforts, your attention, your care, not your compliance or silent suffering. Growth is a daily choice. Every morning presents a chance to choose honesty, patience, and effort over fear, resentment, or avoidance. Family is both a mirror and a teacher. They show us our flaws, our strengths, and our capacity for love in ways no one else can. Sometimes painfully, sometimes gently, but always truthfully. The quiet victory. One evening, the The four of us sat together on the porch. Emily drew in her notebook. Jake scrolled through a book he was reading, occasionally commenting on funny lines. Karen and I shared a quiet smile over mugs of tea. No drama, no confrontation, no lessons being preached, just presence. And I realized this was the victory I had been seeking all along. Not a promotion, not approval, not even reconciliation, but connection. Real, honest, present connection. Reflection on the journey. I thought back to all the years I had endured pain quietly, believing it was necessary. I thought about the lies I had uncovered, the betrayals I had witnessed, the silent struggles I had carried alone. And I understood that those moments, painful as they were, had led me here. To clarity, to honesty, to presence. They taught me that life's deepest lessons aren't learned in comfort or through obedience. They are learned in struggle, in reflection, in courage, and in the end, they give us the chance to live fully without fear of being ourselves. The promise of tomorrow. As night fell, I sat alone for a moment, looking at the stars. I felt a quiet sense of gratitude, not for ease, not for reward, but for the chance to keep going, to keep learning, to keep loving, to keep showing up. I whispered to myself, I will live honestly. I will care deeply. I will continue to grow. And I will never let someone else's plan define my life again. Because life is too short to be silent, too short to live in shadows, and too precious not to be fully present for those we love and for ourselves. Closing words. If you take nothing else from my story, remember this. Your life is yours. Your voice is yours. Your presence matters more than sacrifice, compliance, or silent suffering. Love deeply. Speak honestly. Show up fully. And no matter what life tests you with, you can find your strength, not in submission, but in truth. That is the moral of everything.